Welcome back to Drive Your Thoughts podcast. I'm your host, Master Coach Carrie Marshall, and it's time to go after those goals.
Yeah, whether ready or not, life's coming hard, no breaks, no stop. And if you put me on the spot, don't get it twisted, I never drop. If you feel a bit out of control and out the box, here's a way that you could drive your thoughts. Turn this podcast on, it's a lock. Carrie Marshall on the clock.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Today, we're going to talk about your dreams. So as so many of you know, I'm writing a book right now about dreaming and how important it is to actually have dreams as an adult that you're going after and creating. And so what I see is that a lot of people, number one, disconnect from actually having dreams and goals and things that they're really excited about. You know, a lot of times what we do is we start to create our dreams or our goals around things that we feel are practical instead of like actually going out and saying like, what if I really could do that one cool thing that I've always wanted to do? And so when we talk about being in your dream, we have to really think about what is connecting us to the dream. And then what are we actually doing to incorporate it into our life? So let me give you an example of this. I had one of my clients that was all about moving. She really didn't love where she lived. She lived in a really big city in the United States, and she lived there through COVID. And so she said it felt really, like just exhausting to be in an apartment for that long. She said that she couldn't even see basically blue sky from her building, from her window. And so she said that there were a lot of things that she wanted to do about it. But then when we would talk about actually, well, what's your dream for your life? And like, where would you want to live? She would always stop herself there because she said, it's too hard. My husband works here. Like there would be a lot of things that would come up for her. And so what we talked about is I said, what if you just allowed yourself to believe that there was something else for you and that it really could work out? And so we started to talk about, number one, having a dream. She had a dream that she lived somewhere that she could see blue sky from her actual window. Like that was actually a big thing for her. And then we talked about relocating. And she said, I really want to relocate to like not city living. Like I want to be on just like a suburb outside of a big city. She said, I love the energy of a city, but I just don't want to live here anymore. And so as we talked about some of the other goals and dreams she had for her life, we really had to come back to where she was living. And so I talked to her about what if we could just be in the dream. And when I say be in the dream, that means that you don't have to go out and take massive action to make it happen. But what you do need to actually start to do is see what your life would be like from that space. And so when we talked about this and we started to kind of talk about living somewhere else besides the city, she started to say like, it would be really nice to be able to have a view. It would be really nice to be able to be close to hiking, like 15 minutes away from hiking instead of like 2.5 hours from hiking. And so we started to be in the dream of moving. Now, it sounds amazing, but here's what I want to kind of offer for everybody before we like jump into like being in our dream is I want you to understand that when you start to be in your dream, something is going to happen and you're going to think that something like went wrong. So let me just use this example of my client and why being in the dream is actually helpful. So as we continue to just kind of talk about like, where would she want to live and what would that look like? And she would start to have all of these things come up and she'd say like, but what about my husband's job? And I'd be like, no, we're not going to bring in all of the negativity or all of the obstacles right now. We're just going to be in the dream. And so we got to that space where she could just imagine where she lived. She'd live in a townhome. It would be perfect for her and her husband right now and their cats. She loved thinking about, like I said, like being close enough to things that she could walk, but also being really close to like drive to hikes and nature and things like that. So here's what happens when we start to do that is there starts to be an agitation within yourself, meaning that now what is happening is our real life and our dream are connecting to each other, and that's an agitation point, meaning that our life just doesn't feel like it's what it needs to be. But here's what I want to let everybody know today is that that's actually a good thing. I do this intentionally. My clients are probably like, what? But they all know it, honestly. But what we want is we want to actually create agitation, because what happens is when we are just living our life, we get in this pattern of being really comfortable. And when we're comfortable, we don't try and change anything. And so, like I said with my client, she was unhappy living in the city, but there was no agitation. There were things that she didn't like, but she was comfortable there. She was comfortable with their life. And so when we started to live into the dream and we started to say, like, how would it feel to wake up today and open your window in your bedroom and be able to see a park? And she was like, oh my gosh, I can imagine it. Green grass, blue skies. Like, that would be amazing. It'd be amazing to have natural light coming in from all of these different windows that we have. And so as we talked about all of this, she started to then live her life and be like, this is not working anymore. Like, I can't do this anymore. It was an agitation point. And what happens when we create agitation points intentionally in our life is that it helps us get into action faster. And so if you ever find that you might have a dream, but you're not living in the dream, right? Like, you're not actually intentionally putting yourself there, then what happens is we get comfortable. And comfort, I have a shirt from the life coach school that I got last time we were at Mastermind that says, comfort never changes you. And I really believe that that's true. I believe that when we get comfortable with where we're at, that we're never going to make the changes that we need in order to get the next version of ourselves. And so I just want to offer that when we start to live in the dream and we start to actually see ourselves there, want it, start to visualize what it's going to be like, that then we're going to start to see agitation points, and that can be an actually really good thing if we use it intentionally. And so what happened with my client is there started to be an agitation point, and she just started to be like, this isn't working. Like, this is not going to be my life for the next 5 years. And so even though it took her a little bit to figure it out, like, she didn't get up and move that day, it took her several months, almost a year honestly, as we worked together, that then by the end of that year, she was like, guess what? We're moving. And guess what? My husband figured out how to do it with his job, and he might have to commute a little bit, but it's going to work out perfect for us. And I just saw her post, and that's what made me kind of think about this, about how amazing it is to be able to see blue sky from her windows, and how amazing it is to be so close to hiking, and how her quality of life has actually gone up as she's created these agitation points, not just with where she's moving, but with her job and her life and how she's showing up. And so I'm so proud of her. I'm so proud of like going out and doing the hard thing, but I'm also proud of her for being able to create agitation points and being able to then take action from those spaces. And so just kind of remember that there's something that happens to us if we're comfortable, and then we start to create our dreams and we live into our dreams, and we start to be like, my life would look like this and it would look like that. And then we start to see agitation points, that we have to be so intentional with then taking action from agitation. Because a lot of times what happens is we get agitated, and then what happens is we just get resentful. We come home to the apartment in the city and we're like, this sucks. My cat sucks. My husband sucks. My neighbors suck. I hate this. And we just start to live in that. And so we build up resentment, because what we've done is we've created agitation with no outlet for it. And so just remember that as we live into our dream, you're going to start to see that there are things that don't add up. I live in the city and I live in a small apartment, and my quality of life isn't great there. I want to live here. Okay, well then I'm going to start to see things, and it is going to be annoying. I promise you. You're going to be annoyed with yourself, with the environment. But then instead of just being annoyed and then having it fester into resentment, I want you to really think about how you can then take that annoyance or agitation and then say, what am I going to do about this? I promise you that if we can get into this space of understanding that agitation is not a problem, annoyance isn't a problem, but then it's taking ownership that we're actually in charge of then deciding what to do about it. I've helped so many people with going from what they have to what they desire, what they dream about, kind of living into that dream. And I just want to offer that, like, it's okay to be dissatisfied with your life. But we want to make sure that we're taking the accountability that we are in charge of our life. You get to decide what your life looks like. Too often what we do is we say, like, oh, I have to live here because of this. I have one of my girlfriends that's like, well, we have to live here because of the kids. And I'm like, that's not a thing. You absolutely, like, kids are they adjust, they adapt. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad for your kids, but to use your kids as an excuse to not go after your goals is, I'm just going to call it like it is. It's weak. So don't use other people as excuses to not live out your dream. If you're dissatisfied with something, if something's not working, then it's your opportunity to say, like, you know that this is my favorite exercise. If everything's an option, then what am I going to decide? Our dreams are worth fighting for, and they're worth figuring out. And I just think that too often I'm watching people that are not willing to figure out their own lives for whatever reason. My kids, we can't do that. I have so many amazing people in our life. I have a really good girlfriend that built her dream home. It's gorgeous. She is so amazing. I actually think that if she didn't do what she does, she really could be like an architect or a general contractor. Like, she's just so amazing at what she does with homes. So they built their dream house, and then a couple months later, I think it was almost 6 months later, they moved. They sold the house and they moved into a townhome. And it wasn't because they couldn't afford it. It wasn't because of anything like that, like they were being forced out or anything like that. It was because they had a dream bigger than living in a dream home. And I look at that and I'm always just so impressed with them. Like, they really are such great examples to me of, like, going after your dream and being able to say, like, we're not going to let other people's opinions stand in our way. We're not going to let what we should be doing dictate our lives. Like, we as a couple and with our kids are creating the life that we want to lead. And that might include living in a townhome for a couple of years while we figure it out and while we kind of find the dream property and the dream thing. And I'm just like, that is amazing. And that's what I want to kind of offer for you, is that what I use that example of my best friend because there was an agitation point. I mean, she really did. She built the dream house. But then there was an agitation point after that. And she didn't just say, like, well, I have everything that I want, and so I'm just going to, like, be fine with what this is. There was an agitation point for her and her husband. And so then she went and said, they both said, okay, what are we going to do about this? And then they took action that was against the norm of what most people are doing. And they're living out their best lives. And I just love seeing that. So I just want to remind you all, like, number one, put yourself in your dream so that you can really start to, like, create detail around it. And then number two, I really want you to create agitation points where you can kind of see, like, here's my life and here's what I want it to be. And that's where they intersect, is an agitation point. And then the third thing is, remember to take action from agitation. Don't let it fester and become annoyance and resentment. I hope this has been helpful. I want to hear about what you think about the agitation points in your own life. Where are those? Now, there's two different ways that you can really interact with me. Number one is I would love to hear from you on Instagram. Instagram's my jam. I love it over there. And number two is you can always email me at coachwithcarrie Carrie. So coachwithcarrie@gmail.com. And we can have a conversation through email. So I will talk to you later. Bye. Thanks for listening to this podcast episode. If you're ready to get in the driver's seat of your own life, you can come and follow me at Drive Your Thoughts Coaching on Instagram, or come and see more ways to work with me at driveyourthoughts.com.
Yeah, whether ready or not, life's coming hard, no breaks, no stop. And if you put me on the spot, don't get it twisted, I never drop. If you feel a bit out of control and out the box, here's a way that you could drive your thoughts. Turn this podcast on, it's a lock. Carrie Marshall on the clock.